In my 35 years on the bench in Providence, Rhode Island, I've watched people walk into my courtroom carrying more than a traffic ticket. They carry fear, pride, exhaustion. Sometimes they carry a child's asthma inhaler in their pocket like a lifeline. If this touches your heart, leave a comment and tell me where you drive every day, because what happened in my courtroom started with a simple violation and ended with a moment I'll never forget. That morning, the courthouse had that familiar sound: shoes on tile, low murmurs, papers shuffling. Inspector Quinn stood near his usual spot, steady as a lighthouse. I glanced at the docket and saw the words that have become more common in 2026. Automated enforcement. Camera. Notice mailed to owner. Let me ask you something. How many of you still think, if a police officer doesn't pull me over, I'm probably fine? Subscribe to see more stories from my courtroom, because the road is changing in 2026, and it's catching good people by surprise. The first defendant stepped up. Young father, late 20s, maybe early 30s. A clean face, tired eyes. His coat was a little too light for a Rhode Island winter, and his shoes, those shoes told me everything. The kind of shoes you keep wearing long after they are re-worn down, because there is always another bill first. He looked at me like he expected me to scold him. The charge: speeding in a school zone, no traffic stop, just a photo. Date and time stamped like a verdict. And here is the first big change hitting drivers in 2026. Speed cameras and red light cameras are expanding, especially in school zones and high-risk areas, and the ticket goes to the owner of the car, whether the owner was driving or not source. I held the ticket up. Let me ask you something. Were you driving? He swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. Why are you speeding in a school zone? He didn't deny it, didn't argue. He just looked down, and when he spoke, it came out quietly, almost ashamed. My daughter had an asthma attack. I panicked. I've been doing this for 35 years, and I'll tell you something. Panic doesn't always look like screaming. Sometimes panic looks like a father gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles hurt, praying his child makes it through the next breath. I leaned forward. How old is your daughter? 6. My throat tightened. I thought of my own kids when they were little. I thought of my father, an immigrant, Italian-American, who taught me that rules matter, but people matter too. Dignity matters. Family matters. I said, do you have any paperwork from the hospital? He brought out an envelope like it was sacred. Discharge papers. The time matched. The kind of proof that doesn't need a lawyer to explain. Inspector Quinn gave me a look that said it all. He believed him too. If you believe a judge should listen before judging, hit that like button, because what I said next is the truth every driver needs to hear in 2026. Son, I told him, God bless you, and I'm grateful your little girl is okay. But a school zone isn't a suggestion. It's a promise. Those children don't have armor on. You can't let fear turn into danger. He nodded so hard I thought his neck would hurt. I know, Your Honor. I know. I could have thrown the book at him. But the law isn't a book to throw. It's a guide to protect the public. So I did what I try to do. I held him responsible without destroying him. I structured the fine in a way he could handle. I told him to bring proof of a safe driving course if he wanted consideration. And before he stepped away, I made him look at me. Let me ask you something. When you're scared, are you going to speed again? No, sir. You promise me? I promise. That is one of the 5 things I want you to remember from my courtroom today. A promise is not just words. It's the way you drive when nobody's watching. He walked away breathing again. I saw the gallery relax. A few people even smiled. And I thought, this is why Caught in Providence reached so many hearts. Because people don't just want punishment. They want to be seen. Then the second case stepped up and the room changed. A woman, mid-40s, hair pulled back tight like she didn't have time for anything else. She was holding her purse in both hands, hugging it to her chest. Her fingers were trembling. Her charge wasn't speeding. It wasn't a red light. It was a move-over-related violation. Now, in 2026, across the country, move-over rules are being treated more seriously, and in some places expanded, because too many people on the shoulder of the road are getting hurt. Tow truck drivers, highway workers, stranded families. The trend is stricter enforcement and broader coverage, including vehicles with hazard lights in some jurisdiction source. I looked at her gently. Slow down. Let me ask you something. What happened? She spoke fast, like if she stopped, she'd fall apart. My son was screaming. He's special needs. He had a meltdown. I turned for 1 second. I watched her eyes. Not defiant, not careless, just tired. Bone tired. How old is your son? I asked. 10. Is he okay? He's okay, but he gets scared. He thinks we're going to lose our apartment. And there it was. The thing behind the ticket. Poverty doesn't just take money, it takes peace. It makes the car feel like an emergency room, a daycare, and a battlefield all at once. I was feeling for her, truly I was, until Inspector Quinn handed me the photograph, and my heart sank. The stopped vehicle she didn't move over for was an ambulance, not with sirens blaring, hazard lights, cones, a paramedic kneeling near the guardrail. I looked up slowly. The courtroom went silent. I said, "Ma'am, do you understand what you passed?" Her face drained of color. "Your Honor, I didn't see it. I swear to God I didn't." I believed she didn't mean it, but intention doesn't erase danger. Before I tell you what I decided, share this if you know someone who drives overwhelmed, because the new rules in 2026 aren't just changing tickets. They're changing how close we come to tragedy. I leaned forward. "Listen to me. I'm not here to humiliate you. I'm here to protect you and protect everybody else." She started crying, quietly, like she'd been holding it in for years. "What if that ambulance was for your child?" I asked. "What if that paramedic was your brother? What if someone's mother was lying on that shoulder?" Her lips trembled. I didn't think. I nodded, because that's the truth of distracted driving. It's not always a phone. Sometimes it's life. And that brings me to another shift in 2026. Hands-free driving laws are being enforced more strictly. Some states that used to treat phone use as secondary enforcement have moved toward primary enforcement, meaning you can be stopped just for that. And the violations can weigh heavier with points that affect insurance risk profiles. Source. So I asked her gently, "Were you on your phone?" She shook her head. "No, just my son." I believed her, but I couldn't ignore what she passed. I did what a judge has to do when the public's safety is on the scale. I imposed consequences, but I built them like a ladder, not a hammer. "Here's what we're going to do," I said. "You're going to take a defensive driving course. You're going to show me proof, and I'm going to structure the payment so your child doesn't suffer for this. But I need your word that you will pull over safely if your son melts down again." She nodded, crying harder, and I gave her a statement I hope she never forgets. "Today, I'm holding you responsible, but I'm not labeling you." Inspector Quinn's face softened. The prosecutor nodded. He understood. I saw someone in the gallery wipe their eyes. If you believe responsibility and compassion can live in the same sentence, subscribe to see more stories from my courtroom, because now we get to the part that most drivers miss in 2026. The third case was a young man, maybe 21, baseball cap in his hands. He had that look, half confident, half terrified, like a kid trying to become a man in real time. His violation? License plate visibility. He tried to smile. "Your Honor, I didn't know it was a problem. It's just a cover." And that's when I felt that familiar frustration, not at him, but at how many people are driving around unaware that tiny cosmetic choices now have real consequences. In 2026, several states have implemented new visibility standards for license plates to assist automated systems, meaning covers, tints, frames, glare, even certain plate obstructions are getting more attention, because cameras and readers need clear plates to function source. He said, "They sell it at the auto store. Everybody has one." I held up the photograph. His numbers were washed out by glare. You couldn't read them cleanly. "Let me ask you something," I said. "Do you know what happens when your plate can't be read?" He shrugged. "No, sir." "You look like you're hiding," I told him. "Even if you're not?" Inspector Quinn gave me that little look again. He sees this all the time. I said, "Son, you want a quotable piece of wisdom from an old judge? Here it is. Don't decorate your life in a way that makes good people doubt you." He blinked, like it hit him. I made him remove the cover and bring proof. I gave him a chance to fix it, instead of paying like he'd done something wicked. And as he walked away, I told him, "You're a good person, but you're borrowing trouble." Now, hit that like button if you've ever done something small that you didn't realize had big consequences. Because by mid-morning, I could feel something building. The docket was normal, but the energy wasn't. Like the courtroom itself was warning me. Something heavy is coming. And it came right around the time I saw a teenager step up with his mother. He was 16. Thin. Hoodie sleeves pulled over his hands. His mother's face had that look I recognize instantly. The look of a parent who has been apologizing to the world for years. The charge, an e-bike micromobility violation tied to roadway rules. Helmet requirements and age-related restrictions are being tightened in many areas as e-bikes mix with traffic more and more source. He said, barely audible, "I didn't know." I looked at the mother. "Let me ask you something. Why is he riding an e-bike instead of taking the bus?" She sighed. "We don't have a car. I work 2 jobs. He rides to school and to my mother's house to help her." That line, "help her," pulled at me. I asked, "Your mother is elderly?" "She's sick," the woman said. "He brings groceries." The kid looked down, not proud, not rebellious, just carrying responsibility too early. I could feel my own life tapping me on the shoulder, my immigrant family, the way children in working families grow up fast, the way dignity becomes a chore list. So I said, "Son, you're doing a good thing helping your grandmother, but let me tell you something. A helmet is not about the law. It's about your mother not having to bury a child. The courtroom got quiet again. I reduced what I could reduce. I made it conditional on safety compliance. And I told him something I hope he repeats every time he buckles a strap. Love your family enough to protect your own life. If this story is bringing you back to what matters, leave a comment and tell me who you drive for. Your kids, your parents, your job, your dreams. Then, just when I thought the emotional peak had passed, the next defendant changed the whole day. A man came up with multiple citations. Automated speed, red light, another automated speed, all in a short window. He was angry, arms crossed, voice loud enough to fill the room. These cameras are a money grab. I let him talk. I let him vent. Because I've learned something after 35 years. Sometimes people aren't arguing with the law, they're arguing with the shame of being caught. When he finished, I didn't raise my voice. I simply said, "Let me ask you something. Is it possible you're the problem?" You could hear the gallery react, a soft ripple. He scoffed. "No." I picked up the photos, 2 near school zones, timestamps, clear pattern. I could feel my compassion turning into something firmer. Not cruel, just honest. "I've been doing this for 35 years, I told him, and I've seen what speeding does to families. Do you know what your car becomes at high speed? It becomes a weapon." He rolled his eyes. I said, "What am I going to do with you? If I excuse this, am I helping you or helping you hurt somebody?" That's the cliffhanger moment, my friends. Because right then, something happened that I didn't expect. He uncrossed his arms. His face changed. Not anger, fear. And he said quietly, "Your Honor, I wasn't driving." The room froze. He pointed behind him. "It's my car, but my brother's been using it. He lives with me. He doesn't have a license right now." Now, remember what I said earlier about automated enforcement in 2026. In many places, if the camera catches the car, the ticket goes to the owner, regardless of who was driving source. That's where this gets messy. I looked at him. "So why didn't you say that first?" He swallowed hard. Because if I tell you the truth, my brother could get in bigger trouble, and he's all I got." I paused. My throat tightened again, because now we weren't just talking about cameras. We were talking about family, loyalty, immigrant-style loyalty, the kind of loyalty my father understood, sometimes to a fault. I said, "Let me ask you something. Do you think you're helping him by covering for him?" His eyes filled. "I don't know." I leaned forward. "You're not helping him. You're enabling him. And you're putting the public at risk." Inspector Quinn gave me a look, sharp this time. He knew the danger. Unlicensed driving. Repeat risky behavior. Somebody could get killed. I asked, "Where's your brother today?" The man hesitated. "At work." "What does he do?" "Delivery. He drives." My stomach dropped. "Delivery? On the road all day, without a valid license?" I took a breath. I felt that heavy judge's weight settle on my shoulders. This wasn't just a fine anymore. This was a potential tragedy waiting to happen. Before I tell you what I decided, share this if you have family members you love but can T-control. Because sometimes love has to be brave enough to tell the truth. I looked at him and said, "I'm going to give you a choice. And listen carefully. You can keep protecting him and risk someone's life, or you can help him face reality and maybe save his future." He started crying, big tears, the kind grown men hate to show in public. He said, "Your Honor, our parents are gone. I promised I'd take care of him." I felt that line in my chest. Promises to parents, promises made over a kitchen table, promises that become chains. I said softly, "This reminds me of my father. He came here with nothing. He taught me family is everything, but he also taught me something else. Family is not just love, it's responsibility." I looked at the prosecutor. I looked at Inspector Quinn. I looked back at the man. Here's the decision-making moment. I had to protect the public, but I also wanted to give this man a path that did not destroy his brother S. life. So I said, "Here's what I'm going to do. On these tickets, I am not going to pretend you are innocent if you let an unlicensed driver use your car. You have a duty. But I'm also not going to let this turn into a permanent scar if you do the right thing now." I required him to produce proof that the brother would stop driving immediately. Proof of a plan, license reinstatement steps, compliance, whatever was required. I structured the penalties in a way that encouraged action, not avoidance. And then I delivered the line that became the heart of the case. One of those moments I knew people would quote online. Not because I wanted fame, but because truth travels. A love without boundaries is not mercy, it's danger. He nodded, wiping his face. I said, "Let me ask you something. Are you going to hand him the keys again?" He shook his head, crying. "No, Your Honor, no." I leaned back and said, "God bless you. I know this hurts. But sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do for someone you love is to stop rescuing them from consequences." The prosecutor nodded. Inspector Quinn nodded. The gallery was silent. like everyone was thinking about someone in their own life. Now, we're not done, because most drivers misdemeanor 7 in 2026, and I haven't told you what it is yet. Not fully. 7 is this. The road is no longer policed only by a human being making a judgment call in the moment. It's being policed by systems, cameras, plate readers, automated notices, expanded enforcement. And those systems don't know your story. They don't know if it was your brother. They don't know if your child was sick. They don't know if your life is falling apart. And if your plate is hard to read, if your habits are careless, if you assume I'll get a warning, you're living in an older world that's disappearing. Plate visibility standards tied to automated enforcement are expanding in places, including Rhode Island, mentioned among states implementing new visibility standards to assist automated systems. Source. That's why people miss it, because it doesn't feel like a driving law. It feels like background noise. But I've watched it become a courtroom earthquake. Later that week, I got a letter. No fancy words. Just a plain envelope from that same man. He wrote, "Your Honor, I took my brother's keys. He was furious. He didn't talk to me for 2 days. But then he asked me to drive him to the DMV. We're working on getting him right. Thank you for saving us from ourselves." I sat there in my chambers and I just breathed, because that's the real win. Not a fine paid, not a case closed. I've had my own health journey, my own reminders that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. And when life humbles you, you realize something. Every day is borrowed time. Every commute is borrowed time. Every chance to do right is a gift. Let me tell you something, my friends. Justice isn't about being tough, and it isn't about being soft. It's about being true. Here are a few truths I've learned after 35 years. Truths you can carry with you on the road in 2026. People don't need a judge to be perfect. They need a judge to be fair. Accountability is not humiliation. A mistake is not your identity unless you refuse to learn. The law is a guardrail, not a weapon. If these words mean something to you, hit that like button if you believe in second chances, and subscribe to see more stories from my courtroom. Because the next time I tell you nothing prepared me for what walked into my courtroom, I mean it. Would you have punished that man harder for letting his brother drive? Would you have given him mercy? Leave a comment. I read them when I can, and they remind me we're all trying. And share this with someone who thinks traffic court is just about money. Sometimes it's about saving a family. Sometimes it's about saving a stranger you'll never meet. God bless you. And remember, every time you turn the key, you're making a promise to strangers, but nothing prepared me for what walked into my courtroom next.